Let's start with the ranked games as we'll do our quick, again, recap of all 70 games. Let's begin with Ohio versus Ohio State. The Buckeyes, a little surprising, only 37-9. I know the Bobcats just beat West Virginia, but that's interesting. I think Ohio's going to win the MAC at least. They should be favorites. They almost get the win against Rutgers in week 1. Obviously, they get the big win at home against the Mountaineers in week 2. Here, I think they're just getting themselves ready again for the MAC later down the line. Ohio State, I didn't really look into this game too much, but still, when you see Julian Sain throw for 347 yards, there's something else missing there, and it looks like it's finishing drives. But the defense, just as solid as it's been, not giving up double-digit points. Yeah, Buckeyes are Buckeyes, still number 1. The next team up, we just did that, obviously, right now with that preview. Preview and review from this past week. 44-41, it's a game we missed. Just missed. Imagine if we got it right. We'd be feeling real good right now. But it is okay. We'll take it. As long as we get games like this that are super close margins, you can't complain as a college football fan. Penn State hosted Villanova 52-6 as the Nittany Lions. Obviously, they're not really playing anyone serious so far, but the defense getting themselves ready. In a couple weeks, they play Oregon, who's the next team up that we're going to talk about there. They went on the road to play Northwestern, won 34-14 against the Wildcats, who snuck in some points later on. If I'm not mistaken, they started to play some second team guys there at the end. At one point, it was like 34-7. And then they snuck again another touchdown in. If I'm not mistaken, Dante Moore also threw an interception later on that led to that first touchdown for Northwestern. But ultimately, Oregon, the running game, that's a very scary combination that you don't want to run into. Very good team on the ground. They're going to continue to just slap teams in the face, and there's nothing they're going to be able to do about it. They were also favored by quite a few points, which was kind of interesting. Minus 27.5. They don't cover there, but you got to travel all the way across the country. They did this and had some issues last season. I think we're going to continue to see West Coast teams in the Big Ten when they got to make these trips to the Midwest. They're going to most likely struggle, and those lines that we're seeing, we'll pick at them throughout the rest of the season. Next up, we got Texas at UTEP. Minus 24.5 favorites, if I'm not mistaken. No, I didn't have the line there. Sorry, that was a different Texas game. Regardless, somewhat of a slow start there. They didn't score much in the first half. Not that UTEP is a great team, but the offense, I think, is figuring out. I still think there might be some issues with Arch Manning in that throwing arm. They're just not letting us know. In a couple weeks, I think they have an interesting game, don't they? I know they have the Red River rivalry not too long from now. Florida, that's who it was. They got to go to Gainesville. So hopefully everything's going to get ready for them. They kind of have a cupcake this upcoming week, as they're definitely going to need to show up once the SEC gets going for the Longhorns. But they win and get it right for us, 27-10 there. As we move back over to the left column, second row is Illinois hosting Western Michigan. Fighting Illini win 38-0. There's a great clip of the defense holding the line. I think it was 4th and goal. They end that drive for the Broncos on downs, not allowing, again, this MAC team to score on them. And they're sitting at number 6. They're just one of the best teams in the country. They play real physical. We're going to find out how physical they're going to be with USC in a couple weeks as well. LSU versus Florida is next. Tigers get it right for us. They're in Baton Rouge. Again, 20-10. Florida looked ugly. Looked super ugly. DJ Langway, you got to give the guy another year. On top of that, I think there's other issues going on in terms of him maybe being hurt and playing hurt. If that's a fact, then Florida just needs to figure out not to get him exposed. He threw 5 interceptions, which you don't like to see. The defense is looking good for LSU. I would say this past week or the last couple of weeks is the year of the defense. This is one of those teams that are proving why that's right. Even with Ohio State versus Ohio there, you just don't see it with Georgia and Tennessee though. A great performance up next is Vanderbilt versus South Carolina. Another great defensive performance, but that's because Lenore Sellers was out there in the second half. 31-7 for the Commodores on the road. They're continuing their great form that they had in 2024 into 2025, and they're now 3-0. We'll talk about them in the new top 25 later. Iowa State went down to Little Rock, Arkansas to take on Arkansas State, and the Red Wolves made it a game. But the Cyclones win 24-16. Not a result you like to see, but again, Iowa State just is a team that finds ways to win, and they figured it out a little bit later on. They're not going to be blowing out a lot of teams, to be quite honest with you, because it's just not the kind of type of football they play. But 24-16 is the result there. Georgia Tech gets their first win over Clemson for the first time in a really long time. Also, actually, when we think about it, Vanderbilt also beat South Carolina for the first time since 2008. So a lot of first times this past weekend. But Georgia Tech, 24-21 with a game-winning field goal. We talked about that in our preview a little bit more in depth. Same thing for the next game as we move back over to the left column, third row. Texas A&M wins on the road in South Bend and conquers the Irish 41-40. Great result. You'd like to see it. Just need to clean up there in special teams. That game wouldn't have been as close as it would have been again. But Mike Elko and company looking good so far here in 2025. Marcus Freeman, though, on the other hand, not so good. 0-2. We'll talk about them again in the top 25 section as well. Arkansas headed down to Oxford, Mississippi to take on Ole Miss. The Rebels win 41-35. You got to give the Razorbacks some credit. They kept up with Lane Kiffin in his offense. But on top of that, though, when you think about it, it wasn't much of an offense. There was no Austin Simmons. He was not available for this game. But who comes in clutch? Trinidad Chabliss. And I'm hearing some scary things. I didn't get to watch the highlights yet of that game. But, man, Lane Kiffin knows how to coach. I could tell you that. 353 yards through the air. Who didn't throw a single pass last week when he had to fill in for Austin Simmons when he went down against Kentucky. Just some good coaching over there. And high power offense. Scoring 41 points against anybody in the SEC is pretty impressive. Miami hosted USF, another bunch of undefeated teams. Someone had to lose here, and that was unfortunately the Bulls. I don't know if the Cinderella story is over yet because they still have a meeting with Tulane in the American. And maybe one of those two punches their ticket into the college football playoff. They just got to play perfect the rest of the season for them to obviously have that chance. And they will meet up against each other eventually. 49-12 is not the result you want to see. But Miami here played real physical. Real physical. Obviously, Carson Beck had himself a game. But Mark Fletcher Jr., 120 on the ground. You got to love that. This team, there's something a little bit different there for the Hurricanes than in years past. And I think they finally figured out how to get back to what their kind of identity was back when they were winning national championships, or at least competing, and that was being a physical football team. Now, it's nice to have all the speed and everything, but when you can just punch your opponent drive after drive, You're going to win 49-12 quite a lot. As we continue, we got Alabama hosting Wisconsin. This was our morning main game over on YT for our morning show on Saturday. It's a little bit like Red Zone. We had 14 games this past week that we covered. Should get a little bit better as the season also rolls on because there's going to be less FCS teams involved. This one's a little ugly. I know Wisconsin scored there at the end, but it was basically 38-0 in my opinion. Alabama's defense is starting to hone in, make those right adjustments, causing chaos, getting turnovers. And Ty Simpson and company starting to get things rolling. I'm not too hyped up on Ryan Williams and his performance this past week. I know he had a gnarly highlight, but let's see him do that against a legit team. I know it's Wisconsin. Let's see him do that, again against maybe Georgia here in a couple weeks. Tennessee later down the line. As Alabama wins again, 38-14. Wyoming hosted Utah. There in Laramie. 31-6. A little bit of a slow game for the Utes, but great defense, only allowing 6 points. That game was ultimately won there in the second half. Slow again start for Devin Dampier. But again, solid win. Didn't allow much of anything. I'm going to go back, probably look at that game and see that Wyoming probably barely crossed the 50. People want to criticize the scoreline. But, when you have impressive defense performances, that's what ultimately matters when you play a real team. Who Utah will play this upcoming weekend against Texas Tech. That's actually our morning main game show this upcoming weekend. Next up, we got Indiana heading over to Bloomington to take on... Indiana State heading over to Bloomington to take on the Hoosiers. 73-0. That was a weeknight game. Demolition job. But as expected, Kurt Cignetti getting things going. 3-0. One of those wins was Old Dominion. Not too bad. Not too bad. As this upcoming weekend, they play Illinois. And that's our watch-along game that we'll have here on Rumble this Saturday. The Raging Cajun of UL Lafayette headed over to Columbia, Missouri to take on the Tigers. They lose 52-10. You got to watch out for Missouri. They're a legit team. We have not been sleeping on them whatsoever. They have been in our top 25 since the preseason. We are not naive. They're a legit team. Solid defense. The offense. Can't wait to see them play a legit team. Which is this upcoming weekend. They play South Carolina, and they might get a break there because of Lenore Sellers not available or not 100%. They'll be starting off the SEC schedule 1-0, and that's another team again you got to watch out for, just like Texas A&M. We keep moving. We got South Alabama versus Auburn. An interesting scoreline, 31-15. I think we got to give the Jags a little bit of credit. They have been fighting in a lot of their games. They had a close one last week against Tulane, 33-30, where they almost had a comeback. But great to see that Auburn getting things going. I think they're going to be a heavy run team, obviously, with Jackson Arnold slinging it for them in the back. And I think they're going to be causing a lot of teams issues. He just really needs to... He doesn't need to be a passer. I think there's a misconception that you need to be this one set or one type of quarterback to win a lot of games. You just need to get your team into winning positions. He got outpassed in this game, but that's because, again, Bishop Davenport is actually a pretty good quarterback. He did the same amount of damage the previous week against Tulane. And of course, going against Auburn, they were going to make that a game. They didn't go away. And you kind of have to have one of those opponents, or you kind of want to have one of those opponents that are challenging you for 4 quarters to kind of get you ready for the SEC. And hopefully Auburn is ready because they have Oklahoma this upcoming weekend in the Palace on the Prairie, We'll see if the Sooners can defend Norman once again. 43-3 though is what the Sooners did against Temple in Philly. Not too bad. A little bit again of a slow start for John Mateer and company. But we'll see another big test for Oklahoma, especially for the offense and defense. Can they play a good run defense against Auburn? And can they score enough points not to make that a close game? And the final game, which we also got right, Tulane hosted Duke 34-27. Green Wave continue to win. If I'm not mistaken, Tulane will be playing Ole Miss here this upcoming week. Yes, I am correct. That's going to be a good one. Retzlaff. We'll see if it's Chablis or Austin Simmons coming back. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. A very high-scoring game there. But that's the top 25 from week 3. We'll talk about the new top 25 going into week 4 once we get through